talk like just okay. Let's
Did it?
I just pressed record yeah. So okay,
Live.
I'm a bit I'm a bit nervous. So I know you're really good friends with Blake. Like you studied with him together or something.
No, we actually grew up together.
Oh, okay.
Each other for a very long time. We um
Yeah.
we we went to high school together. I think we met in like eighth grade, and we've kept in touch every day ever
Yeah.
since.
And you also, I wanted to compliment on the masochist because I also listen to this like yeah, occasionally. So
Yeah. Our
yeah,
duo project. I know we need to
yeah,
make a full album soon. It's an EP.
yeah.
Boy,
So
your EP sounds
thanks.
good. I'm really excited for that to come out.
Yeah, yeah, it's basically ready. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to distribute it because that's another thing to
Yeah,
like have an impact, when it's released. And yeah, I mean now it's lockdown, and I
yeah.
practice my instrument somewhere else, and now it's kind of a bit of a gray area to go there and practice. But I don't know, maybe I'll give it a shot.
When did
But
the lockdown happen? Like, was that recent or?
yeah, very, very recent, like sometime last week, I guess. But yeah, it was just like, you know, um, and I think in our country, it's like one of the countries that actually had the lockdown, and it's like
Yeah,
very interesting decision making. But yeah,
it's interesting.
yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to give you a lot of kind of very self-reflective questions
Yeah,
that
let's go.
I like had very much contact time with, so to say, and so the first question would be uh, the core question would be why do you do music, and like some additional to that would be why do you prefer doing music over something else in your life, what
Yeah.
makes
So what makes music kind of stand out to me, or
yes.
like, yeah, okay. So I grew up. Hold on, let me just turn my phone off
Yeah,
here so
no
I
problem.
don't get distracted. Um, both of my parents are musicians. So my dad is a jazz drummer, and my mom is a classical clarinetist and was a band director and then just recently retired. And so I've grown up around it my whole life. Like they were the ones who kind of like
Yeah.
introduced me to like certain, like styles of music. Like big band swing was like one of like the first things, and then also like classical music, like Carl Orff was like one of my favorites. Like as like a little kid, Carmina Burana. My parents thought I was going to be a conductor because I'd like just like dance to Carl Orff's music and like run around and act things out like it was a big play.
Oh, yeah.
And there's always kind of for me been like this. I don't know. Music has connected to a lot of other things for me. Like as far as like when I'm listening to music, it's not just, oh well that sounds nice. It's like I can picture like scenes going on or like storylines, that like aren't really there, and it kind of like connects to like the rest of the world for me. It's almost
Yeah.
like a kind of magic, you know, like
I
real.
can relate, yeah, because there are different like and other senses and even the feeling, when you are interacting and you have some kind of positive, tangible response, it's
Yeah, you can just get
yeah,
lost in
it's
it completely. So I guess I don't know, like growing up around that and having that kind of always be like burning for me, is why I've just followed it, like why I've just kind of followed that path. And there were
mhm.
times, where it's like I didn't know if I wanted to keep playing trombone. I was thinking, maybe this is boy, this is a stupid instrument, or like like there were times where I thought, maybe I want to be lead singer to a metal band or a cyst or something like that, and I kind of diverged from the trombone path, but was always kind of on some musical path. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's always kind of been there. It's always kind of been like this thing that it's like, wow, it's not just one singular thing. It connects. It's like a network that connects to a whole bunch of different things for me, anyway,
Hmm.
like music
Yeah.
in general.
Okay. So the other extreme would be like, which is my next question. Like, if you have found that thing which you find so attractive and you can do for however amount of time, that you can, and how do you deal with the fear of or the inevitability of you and of course me and everybody else uh, to not be able to play music someday,
To not be
that
able to
that
play it.
day. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a really good question. I guess at that point I would just compose, I would I would start writing. Like if ever a day came where it was like, which I'm sure it will when I'm older, where I just can't really play trombone anymore, right? Um, or whether it's, being able to use the slide or whether it's like my chops just aren't good enough. I think
hmm
I would probably start to really get into composition and just mainly do that. Still keep that going, like in some way. Um, and I think I would like that just as much. Like, there's nothing that really scares me about thinking, oh man, I might not ever be able to play trombone because it would still be possible to make music in some sense, And that's
hmm
what it's about for me.
yeah, and that's a pretty relaxed response. Like usually, like observing people, they have like this dark underlying like um, you know feeling about it, when they like something and it's someday it's going to be taken away from them. Like so, and as for everyone, and
But
I
that's
think,
that's the thing. That's impermanence,
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yes,
like everything is going to go away one day, so
yeah,
there's no sense in worrying about it. It's like, what's the saying? I forget who said it, but there is a saying that's like don't fight the river, just follow
yeah.
it. You know the one that I'm talking about? Because if you fight it,
I
you're just
can get the analogy. Yeah,
just drift anyway, so you might as well just see where it takes you,
yeah,
And that's kind of how I see, like music or thinking of
hmm
not being able to play it one day or just how I've started to try to see life in general, during these times.
hmm Okay, so I would also like to know some specific questions like what skills is a trombonist good at musically? Like, I can imagine like staying in tune, like ear
Yeah,
training.
just a giant tuning slide, just a giant
Yeah,
metal tuning slide that you're playing.
yeah.
Um, so what, say that question again. So what specific skills are a
What
trombone?
specific skills you would say that you are really good at compared, for example, to like a guitarist? Like, I don't know if you can make this difference because it's so like, everyone's seeing the world different and it's hard to compare objectively. But, what skills do you really trained, like, excelled because of this playing trombone?
Yeah, that's a hard one because I feel like it is different for everybody.
Yeah.
And if you think about like the actual construction of like the trombone, like I said, it's a giant metal
Mhm.
air-powered tuning slide. You know?
Yeah.
So I guess tuning, like ear training would be good. And then also to think about it too, it's like um, there are no buttons,
Yeah.
on
And you
it.
have to approximate this. Wow.
Just-
It's just
You have
like,
to approximate, and playing fast is
yeah.
like much harder than it would be on like a saxophone, or something like that. So
Yeah.
you start to think about like when you're in the kind of situation and this is for every instrument actually, when you're limited by, like your instrument or your technique, it forces you to think more creatively
Yeah.
about certain things, so like with trombone, like my whole life I've been fighting, like trying to like play faster, like on the instrument. But then, when I can't do it, I still have to figure out how to sound good. So I start thinking about melody, and melody becomes a big thing, where it's like, can I make a really interesting melody that is effortless to play, where I'm not sounding like I'm tripping over myself, and that's a good skill that you can build on the instrument as well. I'm trying to think about what else. I've also heard from people, I don't know if this is true, but like trombonists, big band trombonists, if they start composing, end up being really good writers because of where they're sitting in the big band. They can hear all the parts around them, and they're kind of playing like the inner voices of the band, right? Like not always the melody, not always the bass, of course, unless you're a bass trombonist, but you're kind of in the middle, so you start to hear inner voices and you can hear what the rest of the band is doing around you, so that when you compose, you've got a really strong sense of like inner voice leading and things like that after playing on a band, like on a large ensemble or like in an orchestra for so many years. So I don't know if it makes sense to me, but there's of course no way to prove that.
Yeah. Okay, so have you been requested to play pieces that is not in like 12 tone, like some pure intonation, like things or something like that, because of the specifics of your instrument?
Pieces, you mean like not dealing with like like the 12 tone like Western
Yeah.
system, like Carnatic classical
Yeah.
music or something like that. I have got into it a little bit in grad school. I was learning I wish I could remember the names of the pieces, but some like string pieces in that tonal system. So I learned it a little bit, and I've played around with like different tunings to bring out, like overtone series, and like the Meshuggah studies that I've been doing. Like when I overdub myself, playing certain tones, and this is recent, so it's like I'm still I'm a caveman when it comes to this stuff. I couldn't really, um, explain it to you in a really organized way yet, but I've been experimenting with tuning like certain like making the fifth like a little bit sharp in relation to the root, with other in tune chord tones around that, and see what that does with the harmonics if I use the right reverb or something like that. So I've dabbled with it a little bit. I'm working on it more. Meshuggah's definitely getting me into it because their tuning sometimes is like, whoa, like what, it sounds it's hard to tell what certain notes are sometimes, and I think that's on purpose, because of the way that it sounds, it sounds great.
Could be, but it's really, really interesting, and that's another like cave to dive in, especially in Meshuggah for various reasons, and I am like inspired by it as well from different
Yeah.
aspects, mainly because of the rhythm and this obscure lead playing, that Frederick does.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it really made me to spend time with myself and figure what actually is a sound that I would like, but would be totally out of like the conceptual notion that I could learn somewhere, That is,
Yeah. I mean, I notice like with the whole tuning thing, it's like they've got to be doing something, and I don't know exactly what it is, but if you hear like, I'm sure you've heard it, some of the harmonics that come out of the power chords that they play are not, it's like its own thing,
yeah.
and it's amazing, Be interested to ask one of them one day, like what it is that they're doing, things
Uh,
like that. But
It could be because also of the way that they are recording. Maybe they're recording as a band all together,
mhm.
or and trying to like do everything in the spot, like not to fix it in the mix, so to say, and with like analog gear and all that stuff. And I think
Yeah,
that also could help with
it
that
helps
kind of stuff.
with like the overtones.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, that's what I mean. I didn't mean to say harmonics. I meant overtones, I think. Like the overtones that come out of everything.
Mhm.
Interesting. But
Okay, so moving on, do you have any enmity, jealousy stories and like competitiveness and like things like that, that you have had experience and how you have overcame it, and maybe some insights or something like that.
yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah. I am a very or I'm changing now.
Hmm.
Like COVID has kind of like definitely pulled me out of that space for sure. But I was a very jealous person, like,
Yeah,
um, and I used to think about, yeah. Let's see if I can think for a second.
yeah, sure.
Um, yeah, I guess what I learned from just being an incredibly jealous, petty person in the
Mhm.
past is that jealousy really doesn't get you anywhere. It
Yeah.
exhausts, it's not the competitive jealousness in music is counterproductive to like the
Hmm.
production and flow of like what should actually be happening.
Hmm.
One good, I mean, one way that I kind of learned that is, well, first of all, Blake and I being friends for so long and him just bashing me out of that mindset.
Yeah.
And also, just kind of doing, like the weekly Meshuggah practice
It's
and
basically your own thing, so to say. Yeah.
really
Hmm.
have it in terms of like meditating on the fact that likes, subscribers, none of that matters in the grand scheme of practicing, and kind of training yourself to think about that and training yourself to think like it's just not gonna get you anywhere. That's not the point. The point is not to try to get as many people to like you over somebody else. It's to be as good as you can be in this lifetime as a musician.
Hmm.
That's where it really counts. Jealousy is only
Yeah.
going to be like an annoying thing that gets in the way for you.
I can
It's not
relate incredibly
gonna,
well. Yeah,
yeah. But of course, that's easier said than done.
for
You just have
sure.
to know yourself. But I think it's good to have a steady practice and to record things so that you can look back and see your own improvement and focus on that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, about the whole Chelsea thing, I can share a story like because I started at playing at 18, and now I'm like 25, and I had big problems with like this Chelsea thing, and wow, they're so good, but I have nothing, and
Yeah,
for a
like
very, very long time, that was a big problem for me. Yeah. And I also felt like I really had nothing to offer, but it turned out to not be true, because of just the time spent with myself. And it also was very rocky and not so, how to say, very um, steadily, going, so to say, so frequent. It was not, due to various things. And so now I can say that I have this self agenda that I'm grounded in some way, to
yeah,
also, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That's what it's all about, finding a way to ground yourself with that. I mean,
yeah.
it's interesting. Another story that I heard is yeah, from I heard this story from Wayne Krantz where he said that when he
Hmm.
first arrived in New York City, um, he was surrounded by like Peter Bernstein had just
Hmm.
arrived there, and uh, well, it's Peter Bernstein, Pat Metheny, John Schofield.
Hmm.
All of them were like kind of there, like kind of came there like when Wayne Krantz did. I guess I think
Hmm.
it's those three, but he was talking about how he realized when he moved to New York that, in his own words, he said, "I'm never going to be as good as those jazz guitarists." So he had to completely overhaul his sound to make it his own unique voice. And then once you have your own unique voice, you're not comparable. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you can't compare yourself to anybody else because you're you
Yeah.
and you've found who you are, you know, and I think that's one of the beauties of music as well too, is just kind of finding your own sound, finding your identity as a musician and really sinking your teeth into that and not comparing yourself, you know, not letting yourself be compared to anybody else, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you had a situation where somebody tried to convince you or tried to stop you from uh, doing music? You know?
Tried to say like, for example, like, boy, you really have to love it to be able to do this career. And yeah, I don't think I don't know if it's for you,
Hmm.
like that kind of
Even
thing.
that,
Yeah,
it
say that.
also that, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I had some neighbor problems and things like that, and
Totally.
disposition of in society in general, like because you're, craving, so to say, your own thing, and yeah, there's a lot of side effects to that. So I was like, yeah, giving more context, but of course, this is also a valid answer.
Yeah, I don't think I've had any issues in like an apartment, you know, where like people, of course, like schedules, you know, like if you're in an apartment, you're living with roommates or something and working around like their schedules to be able to practice in your room, you know, or but I guess that could be fixed by just getting your own space or living with a bunch of musicians, you know, finding
Hmm.
other musicians to live with. Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, what I have had happen is, you know, people saying like, "Oh, geez, I don't know, you know, like you really, I'm not sure you really want to like go to school or like make a career in music, like
Hmm.
really have to love it, you know." And for those kinds of situations, just really try and look inside of yourself and see, you know, like, well, is this right for me or is it not? And don't listen if that's what the
Hmm.
voice is telling you to do, you know, which is kind of what I did. I just ignored, you know, like that advice. I
Hmm.
was like, nope, nope, I'm going for it, and then go for it hard, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Okay. So. You mentioned you had some points where it was rough and
Mhm.
uh, maybe to the point where you were considering switching instruments and etc. So the question would be, what were your points, like the most obvious ones, where you wanted, for example, if you wanted to quit music or some kind of breaking points where you wanted to drastically change something, like do you have some? You probably have, so I would like to hear some.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first one was in eighth grade.
Hmm.
Um, and that was, I was getting into this phase where I was like really into like I'm trying to think like what the genre is, like screamo bands, you know, like
Yeah, I've
you
been there.
know, like um Senses Fail, you know, like all of like these like kind of like poppy screamy bands, you know. And at that point I was just like, I mean, because of the way brass or woodwind instruments are
Hmm.
like taught in school, you know, like at a young age, it's like, oh, like you're, you know, like a band kid or whatever, you know, like some people like don't think that that's like the coolest thing in the world sometimes, you know. So back then I was like, I don't want to be a trombonist. I want to like be like a, you know, like rock musician, you know, I want to like be in a screamo band and like, you know, be like a vocalist or, you know, like guitar player, you know.
Hmm.
So I like really thought about quitting, and the reason why I didn't was because I was already getting private lessons and I was thinking like, and I've been doing this for years. I don't know, it feels kind of weird to just all of a sudden stop, you know, like I have all of this
Hmm.
momentum built, so I guess I should keep going. And then it just ended up being a plateau and I fell in love with it again, you know, like after a while. But I did go through a phase of like actually screaming for like this little like garage band, you know, and we never played any gigs or anything. We
Hmm.
had like maybe like a few rehearsals and then that was
Hmm.
it, you know, but kind
Yeah,
of got that out there. And then
yeah.
the second big one I'd say is COVID. And I guess it's been I mean, I never
Hmm.
thought about quitting, but it kind of took away everything. Like at that point, like when COVID hit, because I was living in New York City
Hmm.
and was just starting to get off the ground, like musically, like was really felt like here we go, following the dreams, like I quit my day job to go on a 2-month tour with like this um indie band, like playing trombone called Dirty May. And we went down south for 2 months, and then it came back, and I was like starting to get like big band gigs near Times Square, starting to just like finally like play out, and then COVID hits and wiped everything out. Didn't have any work. I got stuck in Maine, and then decided to just stay, because things are slowly opening up now, but not enough where it makes sense for me to go back. So
Hmm.
I really had this big kind of time where I was like, what now? Like, as I'm sure most musicians do, it's like you have no
Hmm.
gigs. Um, and I mean, I guess at this point, I could start talking about, like the whole like process of the Meshuggah practice, or I don't know if
Hmm.
you have additional questions in the future of that. We'll get to it later. I don't know. What are you thinking?
We could. I mean, yeah, I would think that the rest of the questions that I have, maybe at some point I will stumble it upon. But if you want to talk about this extensively, I would be very glad because I'm very interested in this topic myself, And that's
Okay.
not something specifically that I thought I would ask. But I mean, yeah, for sure. If you want to talk, it's very, very relevant.
Okay. So, yeah. So when COVID hit, I found myself probably on my end. Hopefully, it doesn't happen again.
Hmm.
But okay, all right. So in Eastern philosophy, there's like in Tibetan Buddhism specifically, there's this idea of samsara, which is the cycle
I know, yeah,
of
yes, I
birth,
am
death,
very Hindu, so yes.
rebirth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So it's like the cycle with no direction. It's just this dangerous circle, right, that you kind of like get into, and it doesn't end until you find some way to break it, right?
Yes.
So I think with me and with a lot of musicians during COVID, we kind of fell into this. Some of us fell into this cycle of like musician samsara in a way, right? Where it's like you don't have any gigs coming up, so you either think, okay, like I guess I'll just practice and keep everything up and like just keep going and hope that things open back up again, or you don't and you just get really depressed, and like kind of, like lose touch, because there's no way to play with anybody or play any gigs, So I was in danger of having that happen to me, just kind of like being like, oh, geez, where do I go from here? Um, and I saw Blake doing the whole Meshuggah Monday thing, and I have to be honest with you, when I first saw it, I was like, man, like you're just becoming a YouTuber, like a rock musician who was a jazz musician, like
Hmm.
no one cares, all of like just this really bitter stuff. And Blake was the one who kind of said that it's way deeper than that, and urged me to try it and just
Hmm.
kept pushing, like try it. He's like, there's something about Meshuggah that it's like a school, like if you make it that way, so he's like, you have to try it, you can't judge until you try, and I did, and it became this kind of drishti. Do you know
Yeah,
that term? So
focus,
it's
yes.
like
Yeah.
in yoga, yeah, it's like a point of focus, it's like you're growing concentration,
Hmm.
like, and so this weekly practice, not only do I feel like for me it helped me break this musician samsara that I was in during COVID, but it also became this drishti and this monument that I can look back on and can see like, wow, this is where I started and this is where I am now. Like it gives you hope. It gives you, like this kind of like feeling and this momentum to just keep going, and it's very rewarding, it kind of gets rid of any of those ruts that you may otherwise get into. But the trick is you have to do it every week, and you have to make it a religious practice. It's got to be something that you never miss, because part of the struggle is trying to juggle it with the rest of your life, especially when things start opening back up again, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, trying to keep going. Say you have a really busy week, or some, like family thing comes up, right?
Yeah.
Gotta find a way to do it. Sleep less, do whatever you have to do to keep going every single week, and you will be rewarded. It's like, it's great, It's definitely helped me.
Yeah, I think I have a similar schedule because there was a point in my life where I couldn't play guitar, and now every weekend I go to, well, now there's a lockdown, so it's harder to go, but I see that penalties are not so big, so, and it's a risk, it's not a guaranteed, like penalty and stuff like that, but for this month, hopefully a month, um, everything will be sorted out. But I do go and play every Saturday and Sunday, and yeah, and try to do a little bit of the things that like drum arrangements and things like that. But yeah, the time that I spend with my instruments there is increasing. Like it was hard for me to do 2 hours, like or something like that. I tried to switch a lot of things and so on. But now it's like 4 and 6.
And
Yeah.
do you record things? Do you have like a weekly like recording
I
bank where
do
you?
I do have some, mainly these are just the ideas that are like good enough demos to work on, and yeah, I do have like, but I don't have any consistent because all that stuff went into my EP, the refined stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
and I have
Which is important
same
too.
feeling, yeah,
That's very important too. But
and
to
so
have
many, okay, yeah,
no, go
oh,
ahead. What were you gonna say? I didn't mean.
so many things like go off when you kind of establish something like this for yourself, and there's some kind of dynamic, uh, you know, dynamic focus being given no matter what is the result, and you will get good results like anyway over time. That's like
Oh,
impossible not.
absolutely.
Yeah,
As long as you have a way to look back, like for me,
yeah.
another thing with the just like this school of the Meshuggah that Blake and I kind of got into, it's like amazing to have something that you record every single week,
Hmm.
so that it acts as kind of like as a practice log, and something that you can always look back on, because like years from now, when you've been doing some recording like every week like this, you can, if you're ever like, oh man, like I feel bad, like
Yeah,
about
you need reference point.
you
Yeah,
could go back to the very beginning and see, well, there's serious, I can see the improvement, here, so I must not be that bad,
yeah.
even though I
So
don't have
can I?
a
Yeah.
gig, like,
Mhm.
um, because of
Yeah,
the,
for sure.
it's good, yeah.
Yeah.
However anyone does it is good, but just to have that weekly routine where it's like you're recording snapshots of what you've done, what you've improved on every single week, so that you can look back whenever things get dark. I think that that's good.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And like on top of that, there would be a question, what would you like to like, suppose like you are on a track to something. You have this force that is pulling you that you have defined, and that is this weekly practice, and uh, so to say, what would be your vision of the work? What would you like to say to the world? Like, what is the, yeah, like the message or the, um, I don't want to say the purpose because that's a very hard term to put into this concept, but it's more like what would you like to define as the fruits of your work? Like to like, for example, me or other musicians or people that would like to hear.
Okay, I'm trying to think. So what would be the fruits of my work? Like, can you say that question again? Maybe like in a,
Okay, maybe I will rephrase.
yeah.
What would you like to tell with your work? That you kind of haven't said. You maybe have said indirectly in your music. For example, that I can do it. Or like that I got out of this rut, or like that. How does it sound, and how can it sound, and things like that. What would you like to say with your music?
Okay, I don't know. I don't know if this is uh what you're talking about, but this is another thing that, like
Okay.
Blake and I have talked about where it's like you're trying to I think he said this to me where it's like uh try to be someone that your 13-year-old self looks up to. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah.
so for example, like me in 8th grade, like when
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to play trombone, like, oh man, like that's not, I just want to get into this screamo
Yeah.
music, right? Now I'm playing Meshuggah metal on trombone. And if
Yeah.
my 13-year-old self in 8th grade saw that, I would have never, wanted to stop playing trombone.
Yeah.
I would have saw that, saw that and just been like, that's
This is the shit.
pretty cool,
Yeah.
like so it's like if you can kind of like think about how you were, like when you were a teenager, like an angsty teenager, like when all of your emotions were going everywhere and you didn't know what to do, if you can think about like I'm gonna be the coolest person my 8th grade self has ever seen, then I feel like you're on some track. I feel like
Yeah.
that's maybe the right track. Like it's. I mean, it's not about obviously trying to like be cool or whatever, but to like create this image where it's like you feel confident, you feel good. Like about like what you're doing and you're improving and you're trying to be, like the best that you can be. I feel like that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it absolutely does answer my question. Yeah. And okay, so speaking about continuing about the struggles, uh, like not taking into consideration the previous things that we talked about. Have you have any recollection of like musical struggles, like some moments where you felt like you can't learn something, or like some kind of this not so great experience, and what would be that experience, and how did you get over it?
Yeah. I feel like the struggle that I have is like where there's like for example learning music that I'm not passionate about.
Oh, yeah,
And then the way to fix that is find some way, obviously like just that's where you use your creative
yeah.
forces and try to find a way to be passionate about it. Think about it abstractly, like
Hmm.
however you can. Um, so like for me it would be like this has always kind of been a struggle is just like learning standards, because that music for me, it's funny because I mean, I went to school for jazz performance, but it's like standards. It was hard for me to really learn them because I was like, I'm not really like this music doesn't really get me, like some other genres do.
Hmm.
So a way to kind of overcome that is making your own arrangements, making the standards your own somehow, and like overdubbing yourself, for example,
Hmm.
memorizing the chords that way and, like knowing what the chords are. And then if you don't like them, if you think they sound lame, reharmonize them, keep the melody, make the standard something that you like, and through that, you're going to learn the standard. Um, you know, and this could be with anything. That's just an example, you know. But for me, that's a big struggle, and it's always been through different, you know, like classes in school too. Like I just wouldn't learn things because they weren't like I wasn't passionate about them, you know. Um,
Okay, and from that stems the next question, which I also wanted to ask later, but I will go on to ask now. What would be the things that you would like to be different in your music education, you know?
yeah. Um, I think the genre aspect, honestly, um, treating, I wish that, you know, like in music education, educators would treat music as a whole instead of, you know, like for example, having there be a jazz performance degree or a classical degree. And now, I mean, that would be really difficult, you know, like to do to like just teach
Yeah.
music, you know. But I think that it's like going to jazz school, for example, can be a little bit of a dangerous thing because you get stuck in this headspace of like the jazz bro headspace, you know, where you're just kind of like, oh well, if it's not, you know, like this kind of jazz, then I don't want to hear it, or like it's lame, you know, or like anything like that, you know, like what are you doing listening to that? That's not swinging, or you know, like that's not saxophone is playing like a million miles per hour, you know, it's like I feel like that can be confusing, and it definitely confused me. It turned my ears off to a lot of music that I hear now as being incredible, you know. But while I was in school, it was like, oh boy, no, almost like I shouldn't be listening to that, you know, like kind of vibe. So I think that I wish that there would be less of that and more of like no, music is like a whole thing. It's like the genres don't matter. You're not supposed to listen to just one genre to like be, you know, like good, you know, like find out what you like and then go down that path of listening and listen to it a lot and develop your own sound through that, you know?
Okay, so what you mentioned that you have like other musical skills, like for example, sing. Do you play any other musical instruments also?
Well, I recently I've been kind of teaching myself guitar and bass a little bit, you know, and I've
Yeah.
been thinking about, you know, like doing drums. See, I'm in this weekly composition group that I haven't done in a long time,
Yeah.
which I feel bad about, called Bop Pop, whatever. Um, we were given like a prompt, something to for example, this week's theme is dinosaur, and then everybody has to write music based on dinosaur, right, or something like that.
That's
They
so
get
cool.
up with something, and then
Yeah.
every vote listens and votes, and whoever gets the most votes and wins picks the new theme, and then it just goes week after week after week forever, you know. And with that, you know, it's like the idea is, you know, like one of my ideas when I get back into it is I want to try and play every instrument and write my own music based on the skills that I know on all of the instruments. So drums, bass, guitar, you know, and just keep trying to improve from week to week through composition.
Yeah.
Um, which I think would be useful. So yeah, so short answer would be I'm trying to get back into learning guitar and bass. I play piano compositionally. I could never play a gig on piano. Um, and yeah, that's about it. You know, all of
Yeah.
all of these different instruments I use, or I am probably going to use compositionally. Like, I have no real desire to get to a point where I can actually play gigs on them. You know, that's trombone for
Yeah.
me. That's what that's used for. But
Wow, the first thing I want to say that compositional thing is very holistic, sounds very holistic. Like, and you know, yeah, getting into guitars, bass, and drums. Well, I had an idea to get into the bass and drums also. Bass is not really a big leap for me because I
Yeah.
already play guitar, but I was willing to convert, and I had this idea to convert the quarter tonal bass as well, like the 12 frets or something, and then have a more massive tone, so to say. And I really lack in drums, so even compositionally, so I would like to learn the basic concepts and maybe even drum something as well. But that's like when I get to the point where I can practice every day, then yes, then that's happening. But not necessarily now. Now I'm just I even have this thing where I just like no strings and just try to I have these sheets like and I try to kind of write and practice without strings just with this
Like
hand like
practice.
for some
That's a really
yeah
good
yeah
idea.
yeah
Yeah.
and that is
That.
like the ultimate neighbor counter
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you
exactly.
get better actually so yeah and I feel like my music is going to be a lot more legato heavy and that's fine because I like that kind of music.
Yeah.
We'll see where it takes me. I'll try to make the most of it, and meanwhile, over time, try to find a place where I can do this every day. Maybe with more harsher instruments, like more audio, so to say, acoustic, and so on. And yeah, see where it takes me. I'm very excited now. I can see that there is like so far to go after just I made this like EP, so to say. And yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear it when it comes out, man. It sounds great, and I haven't even heard. I've only heard like a track, but I'm
Yeah,
very.
and there was also a Blake solo in the like last
I haven't heard that.
So
I haven't heard that yet, but
oh yeah yeah
excited.
so in the track but okay what else I wanted to ask about for example if I want to get into blowing instruments um, where should I start? I'm like complete blank page, and for example, maybe trombone wouldn't be the best suggestion. Maybe I should play something else. And if that is the case, what it would be, and how would I approach it? What should I develop, like physically, to be able to learn it faster, for example? Even if I had no musical experience, that would be even harder.
Yeah, I think you're gonna run into unique issues with every instrument you play, like as a
Mm,
beginner. So it doesn't matter whether it's trombone or whether it's something else. I feel like you
mhm,
can learn any instrument, but each instrument is going to have its own kind of curse that comes with it that you're going to have to
mhm,
break. So I'm trying to think in terms of trombone, I guess the first thing uh, I would say, or like one of the things I do with like beginner students is trying to make a sound on the actual mouthpiece because the mouthpiece is
mhm.
really what makes the instrument work. Like if you can't make a sound on the mouthpiece, you can't make a
Oh
sound on,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah. I have seen this problem. Like, yeah,
It's like
that's
playing a
really
guitar without the strings.
yeah.
But
Or
I
not being able to press them. Yeah, yeah.
like as far as like if you were to go to a gig and have a guitar without any strings, there would be no sound. Like that's how it works. Like with the mouthpiece and
Hmm.
trombone, right? Um, so I would say, yeah, the first thing is to get a sound on the mouthpiece, right? Get like a good like buzz going, because that's what it's going to sound like, and then practice doing like sirens, like see if I can like this kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then just keep, like expanding your range, just keep going. And then try to play, like one note, B flat on trombone first position, and then keep slowly adding notes. I don't know. I mean, how would you?
That's like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like
yeah.
with the notes on trombone, you have to memorize, like all of the positions and how it sounds. and then work your way up from there, you know?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, going to the like Everest and back. Yeah.
Well, how different is it from playing like fretless guitar, for example?
Uh,
I mean, of
for
course,
me,
sound production, the air is a whole nother, that's
yeah.
and for you. But as far as tuning goes, it would,
Fretless guitar, I mean, it would be easier because I already have the knowledge of the fretboard. So of course, it would take some extra learning curve to, you know, play as half as good play with frets, so to say. But
yeah, I mean, with
it
trombone,
wouldn't
there's
be like,
also kind of like a fretboard with trombone. It's just like, it's like an imagined fretboard,
yeah,
where it's like, like I feel like it does. The only problem is it's like starting fretless guitar without learning regular guitar first. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
that's
that's
like,
kind of what it would be like.
yeah.
So it's like you're, like that there's a fretboard there, but you just have to hear it and you have to memorize it, like sonically. Um, it's just in your head instead of actually being able to see it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm very happy that I got such an easy instrument, so to say.
No, no, guitar has its own problems too, though. And with guitar, it's like I
Yeah.
feel like guitar, you really have to dig deep as far as the jealousy thing goes because of how many guitarists there are out there.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can
I
sell
can't even.
yourself. Like,
Yeah.
so I feel like
But the
that's,
solution is the same.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Finding your own voice, so to say, and
Yeah.
just going with it. So
When you're playing
I
one of
can also,
the popular instruments.
sorry?
I said when you're playing one of
Uh,
the most popular instruments.
yeah. Yeah. But I found my voice. I was really looking, you know, was composing a lot, and these compositions took me nowhere. I had like 3 hours of MIDI, and yeah, didn't get me. I didn't on the instrument, and I was still scratch in a different way in my DAW. So it's and now I got and if I actually had to write music for band or to perform, that is something that I would also have to go for the first time. But I think I have all skills to do it relatively quickly, and it's just a matter of combining, rehearsing, and just playing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the thing is, maybe one problem would be some kind of performance anxiety and things like that. And that is also something I didn't write, but I would also like to ask, what has been your issues, like your journey with performance anxiety? What has it evolved into something else, or as it has reduced, or like what's your relationship with it?
Oh man. Um, I feel like it comes and goes for me, and
Mhm.
I'm interested to see what changes after the whole uh COVID practice routine, Meshuggah stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like that will help it because that's the grounding point. So yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know. I think for me personally, the hardest people to play in front of are like my peers, like the people I know, who are like really
Mhm.
listening.
Yeah.
That's the scariest because they're gonna know, like when you screw up. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, geez, I don't know. I don't really have any technique of how to like overcome it or anything because for me it's like this kind of like fluid nondescript thing, that
Mhm.
will like be there sometimes or it won't be there, or I'll be
Mhm.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't have a lot more like relevant questions already answered, like some of it that I didn't ask, but it's good because there is a lot of information that I will gather, because I'm definitely going to be somebody who is going to listen to all of them, and I have like also multiple people scheduled, and implement these things, in my life, so
Yeah, I mean,
that is like the purpose of it.
yeah, I can't wait to see where this project goes, Armin's. I mean, I think this is like a really good idea, especially when your country is in lockdown, just gathering this
Yeah.
information, talking to people, and um, I think it's gonna be really amazing, when you put
But
it
the
all
thing
together.
is, I'm like really independent in the sense that I haven't found like my scene or things like that, and there's not much people in general in this country. So, but there are musicians in different genres and so on. But to find a band, it's really hard, but I think it's possible. And over time, if I keep just doing music, and I think I'll play with, so to say, and I would like to do some technical new metal stuff or something like some metalcore,
Yeah,
or something like that. That's
absolutely.
that's like so yeah, my thing, so to say. But for now, I'm just kind of swimming in my pool and just trying to figure out, so to say, where to go and just involve more time in music, and that's pretty much it. And I had this idea of these podcasts because like. One guy suggested me, there's this guy called Roy Marchblanc, and he plays guitar like really fast. Like he has this weird technique, he has different picks, and he set up his guitars very specifically, and he has some weird, obscure advice that has like come from like a lot of experience.
Yeah,
It's his idea to like practice without like just with the
yeah, 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 yeah. You told me about this.
uh,
It's amazing.
yeah. So I really want to see where it takes me because I see that it works, and
For sure.
whatever works is fine for me,
Ah, yeah, yeah, that's the way it should
in a
be.
practical sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But other than that, I mean, uh, I hope we will also do something sometime, and
I would.
as I was already expressing, but yeah, I wanted to focus on the EP, and now it's kind of done, and it's going to be an interesting thing to implement
Yeah,
trombone, with guitar, and yeah, I mean, why not, and I can see already that it worked in the Masochist EP, but it was like very cool. I especially like the God pounds his nails like this, boo, 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 this like Friends theme, like $5, like
it's like
I
like
really like.
ska, like borderline ska, like
Yeah,
music.
that was really cool. Yeah, and
Good.
I also noticed. I think you also sung in there, in the 7 years in an hour. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah,
That's singing that one.
yeah.
So
So these are my two favorite tracks.
good.
Like,
Good.
yeah. Yeah, other than that, I really don't know. Like, I don't have like much to say, and I found out like so much information. And if there is anything that you would like to ask me, it's for sure. I mean,
Yeah. Um. I mean, maybe a good thing to talk about again, to just reiterate for all of like the other musicians out there is like how are you getting through being in lockdown? And I know that you talked about it a little bit, but like as like a musician,
okay, I need some. Okay, I will briefly describe the situation prior to it. So my journey was like this. I started playing guitar in 2015, and on and off had not so great music teacher. Like it was not like a music school. It was like just like you come and you learn something and you go. And then it took off, because of the music. Interested into it. I wanted to learn, and I had this desire that I wanted to compose, like like specifically something, and after that, I was practicing, and I didn't had like any problems, and then I had this, um, neighbor problems start to appear, and I was practicing too much, and I was practicing like obscure stuff, and of course I suck, which add a lot to it, What are you doing? Why are you not playing this and like or whatever? And there was some really big enmity issues, with and I was having sleep problems because I was intentionally like you know, like this. I had bangs and stuff like that, and it was pretty intense. But I'm glad I got through it, and that is why I don't play guitar in my apartment. So it's like it's not maybe it was not such a big in reality, but it was like a huge dread to me. I was like almost like paranoid or something. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I had a lot of problems also with like people being jealous because I had some technique like and nobody could understand what I was doing. And yeah, it was not for like casual listener who like and I also had problems in my dorms where I was like studying at university. So after that, recently field, I found a place that there is like when I was living in a different city. Now I'm in a different work, different city, So and I found this place in Riga where I'm like in the city, like capital city, which is like 13 minutes away with a train, and then I am practicing it every weekend. But before that, I was in my previous workplace and going to the country field wherever I can, like a
Yeah.
15-minute drive, sorry, and just practicing guitar there. I even played some things in my car, some demos I recorded with a laptop, with the USB interface and with like
Nice. There
guitar.
we go.
And it was already like this microtonal converted guitar, so it was yeah, and I had this huge despair and like uh, maybe I should quit. And it was really under fire. It was a really tough moment, but I really wanted to create the CP, and that's why I feel like gotten so militant that I don't care if there is a lockdown or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll just find a way to make it happen. I don't care. Now for me, it's just that if something happens to my musicality or like something happens to my hearing or motor function or something, it's okay. Like I did everything that I want to do. Like I reached the bottom limit of my desire. Now I can die happy, basically.
Yeah.
I'll figure what. Yeah. But before that, if there is possibility to do it, I will rather try and do it. For now, I'm just trying to establish myself as like an independent analyst in the company that I'm working on. It takes like a long time, like a year and like maybe a half a year now that I'm working 3 months in already, and then I'll be able to like do all the analysis myself and things like that, and my salary will increase and stuff like that, and I'll feel comfortable working, and I'll have more time off because I don't have to study for my work also, and then I'll be able to go to the weekends also to practice in there, and maybe change the place where I'm living to that city where I can just walk with foot and practice, and things like that. So of course, there is also this like artist work and things like that, and that I'm very sure, and all this creative pressures and things like that. That is also the case, but that is less the case as opposed to then not being able to play a musical instrument. That the problem is not like you're a criminal or something. You just want to play a musical instrument, and somebody
I know.
is in front of you and wants to take it away from you. And that's like, and unfortunately, like we don't have musical culture, and it's really sad that, real criminals come from like places where people didn't express themselves in the way that they could,
Right.
you know.
No, you're
Yeah,
absolutely
that's
right.
very, very, very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that is my answer.
So,
This
yeah,
COVID doesn't mean anything for me. Yeah, sorry?
no. I'm sure it means. I mean it meant a lot to me too. That was inspiring for me, for sure. Like as far as like
Yeah,
just hearing how you get through, like
yeah.
hearing how different people get through.
Oh, and I can say some practical things that really pulled me through is, although I haven't implemented a lot of these, but would be having a better diet, which is hard because I'm a sugar
Diet.
addict. But
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, but I have been improving. Like I have been eating more fruits, vegetables, honey, things like that. So more raw food and things like that. But there's a long way to go regarding that. And
Yeah.
of course, I have always been like, not always, but like this, more than 5 years already have been like meditating. And there was a moment where I was hardcore, like this enlightenment seeker and like getting into the posture for an hour or more and usually went to sleep like in this position or like had extreme physical pain and got nowhere. But I got some kind of more sensitive to life because of this process, and that also helps, it helps to
Yeah.
relax. Because
Mhm.
I was surprised how this answer that you gave was so relaxed about regarding this death, and yeah, the thing. And I think you feel the same, basically kind of complete with yourself that you're doing what you can, and and you're entertaining this concept that you're just swimming in the flow that's already predestined,
Yeah.
yeah, and, that's just your objective, you don't have to like turn the flow in different directions, so to say,
Exactly. And just really starting to, I mean, as morbid as it is, like really what I've been all about lately is just really, really contemplating um, just death in general, but not like, like bringing
Yeah,
death to myself, but just, like not being
yeah,
afraid,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
just
the
thinking like
yeah.
this, how would I feel if this happened now?
Hmm.
Like looking back on my life, like if I died right now, how
Yeah.
would I feel? And then just always trying to improve that image for yourself, like going through your day-to-day practice or your life, like trying to improve the outcome of that question of like if I died right now, how would I feel? Like would I feel
Hmm.
content in everything that I've done, or is there something missing? What's missing? Okay, is it this thing? Okay, let's go after this thing for a little bit. Let's include this in the practice. You know what I'm saying? Like getting to a point where you have this image where it's like, hey, if it
Hmm.
happens, I'm satisfied with everything that I've done. There's nothing that I, like
Yeah,
don't,
and
you know?
I, I can also suggest something that really worked for me is to even contemplate on the facts of the death themselves, like that this is temporary, and anytime it can happen, and things, even like not going further, even just remembering these things, they really do relax me. Like they cut out all the other things that seem so important, but they're not anymore, because this is more true actually. The only thing is for certain is that, nothing else, you know.
Exactly. Like it's coming, you don't know when. And are you going to be ready for it when it does? Like,
Yeah,
um, are you going to be content with everything that's happened? Like,
yeah,
and then you just work toward that. And then it relaxes you the more you work toward it, the more you kind of get that
mm,
picture ready in your mind, like it's good,
yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, if I don't have anything, so yeah. If you don't have, I think we can call this and to an end. And I was like really, really happy to talk with you, and I'll never look at the same yeah, again.
Same,
Now
Armin.
that,
I mean, it was awesome, man.
yeah,
Like, thank you so much for doing this and for
yeah,
just everything. It was also cool to meet you and talk to you face to face, after
yeah,
listening to your music and stuff, So,
yeah,
yeah, it's great. Thank you. Can't wait to
yeah.
see
And thank you very much.
the rest of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
man.
See you then.
Later.
Yeah, see you later.
Everyone's mind is weird down here, so we'll see.